Hello, my name is Hugh Kwashi, and I'm here to voice my support for the Acting Your Age campaign. There was a time when black actors were more or less invisible, or else confined to a very narrow range of types and roles. If things have changed and are changing, it's because of the pressure that was brought to bear on broadcasters and producers to be more diverse, to be more inclusive. It seems unthinkable that women of a certain age are still invisible on our screens. And we need to bring similar pressure on the broadcasters and the producers to tell those stories too. That's why I'm happy to say, don't cast her out. Please support the Acting Your Age campaign.
Once upon a time, there lived a woman. She had worked as an actor her whole life. She had played a range of interesting parts and loved her career. Then one day, this woman did something unforgivable, something which isolated her from the work she loved, something which no female actor should ever do, something so awful she could no longer afford to pay her mortgage. She turned 40.
I've been an actress for about 34 years, and 10 years ago, when I was 46, I started to be cast in small roles in TV and film, and I was immediately cast as a battle axe, and I've been playing a battle axe ever since. And whilst I'm not ungrateful for the work, I'd just like to support Nikki in her campaign to challenge the way older actresses are cast in film and television.
Part of our job as actors is to reflect society and to have an impact or even change attitudes. And so if you become more and more invisible in your industry and in the arts and on screen, you become more invisible in life as well. And that is simply not my experience. My experience of being an older woman is, I feel like my life is richer, I feel like I have more to say, I feel like I have more to offer, and I want to see that reflected on screen and on stage and in films and in the media in general.
Women over 40 have some of the most interesting stories to tell. They should be represented on screen.
I feel as though I shouldn't still want to act at my age, as though there's something a bit childish about it. When I voice my desire to want to act to others, there's an awkwardness that comes into the atmosphere. Parity with actors of my age would be the ability to play the central, interesting character, not only the adjunct, not only the wife or the mother, and also, God forbid, the love interest, to be allowed to be sexy, which I think the UK in particular has a problem with, unlike countries such as France and Italy, where women over a certain age are still allowed to be sexy.
Male actors may start their careers in their early 20s
And they will continue those working lives right through to their 80s or 90s and never experience that plateau that happens in your late 30s or early 40s. There's no hiatus in the trajectory of their working lives. Or if there is, if they hit a period of unemployment, which they might do, it won't be to do with their age. Whereas women, even young actresses who've been quite successful in their 20s and 30s, will invariably hit that plateau around the age of 40, when simply the roles run out. So it seems to me principally a question of writing and of scripts. Ultimately, it's always about the writing. And why is that? Why are people not writing about women above the age of 40 very much? And you can only conclude that writers in general do not think that anything interesting happens to women after that age, that somehow all their narrative stops then and it becomes somebody else's narrative. So yes, there are roles for women as wives, partners, perhaps mistresses, mothers, grandmothers, but those stories are all about a protagonist somewhere else, a male protagonist, and the actresses may be offered parts which are about that adjunct to the male protagonist. I mean, that's my experience a lot. And I know I speak as a very lucky actress who has continued to work throughout my 4 decades of a working life. But increasingly those parts have become, in the last 20 years, somebody who's serving the concerns or the interests or the needs of the male protagonist.
A fantastic actress, woman, mother, called Nikki Clark was running a campaign called Acting Your Age to highlight the lack of parts for women over 50 or in their 50s and older, and the lack of opportunity that there is, not just with acting but with writing and directing and all the rest. And she ran the campaign really successfully on Twitter, and and made some inroads, much more than had been made before. I've just emailed her, and she's given the campaign up because of just basically the lack of interest. She couldn't keep it going anymore, which is really, really depressing. And shame on you and our industry for not paying enough attention and running with it. We are sick to death of this. And, we're not going away, so it's a shame that Nikki's given up. She is in the middle of writing her first feature film, which is brilliant. So watch the space. And, yeah, I just think our industry has got to change, and it's at a snail's pace. It has to be at a hare's pace. So just stop casting us out and make room. And just, I'm sorry, Nikki, but we'll keep fighting the good fight. That's all.
Write to them and ask them what they've done in this bit. So Ofcom have said that they've got to do it and that they've managed to do it, and I will write to. So I'm happy to write to all of those and say, what have you done in this space? And obviously anything else that I can do to help, because it is genuinely frightening for me to see my constituents become unrepresented and hidden, and older women are in every single metric more discriminated against. It carries through. What you cannot be, what you cannot see, and it carries through into the lives of women in the real world, without question, that they're much more likely to be discriminated against in every regard, certainly around work and health services, etc., etc.
Very interesting thing, Early, when you said that you have witnessed women in your constituency whose narratives are not being told, that that if they saw their narratives being told on our screens and perhaps stages, but particularly our screens, that you think that would make a significant difference to their difference. I would really love to hear more about that, because I think that there we take this issue into a completely different level, right? And I would really love to down with you or have a Zoom or something with you.
Yeah, sure.
And hear more about specific instances, and then maybe we build a story around that, because I think that's an extraordinary statement to make. That you, as an MP, representing thousands of people, actually can see that without their stories being told on screens, that they can recognise and identify with, that things are happening to them, which are not being told, and which would not be happening to them if they could see themselves.
I work in a women's refuge in North London. I do work with the women there that come in who have been in violent and domestic abuse situations, and they said this week, they know I'm an actress, and we do like workshops and stuff to build them up, and they said the same thing. They just said that when they see those sort of dramas that are portrayed on the television, and a lot of these women are older, a lot of these women have been in abusive relationships for like 20, 30 years. And they all say, we are not, they're not represented. And when they see that on screen, they feel more compelled to get away from it. It gives them some sort of confidence and impetus to actually seize back their lives.
We need the men on board. We need the actors.
I meant to question it.
We need the actors. We need the actors on board as well. The actors who have power, who have influence, to stand with us too.
I do want to just say that I'm only now in a TV series because the lead actor wanted a wife character who was comparative to his own age.
Wonderful.
That's it. And so when I think Kate had said about you've got to get the actors on side.
Yeah.
And he dug his heels in, and he did his due diligence and brought the information to the gatekeepers, the executive producer, who was a woman, and the producer, and literally, because he did have to really kind of hold on to the handlebars and go, no, I'm going to drive it this way. And he actually brought it to them and said, not since 1969 has this happened.
Hello, I'm David Tennant, and I'm signing up to the Acting Your Age campaign Parity Pledge to ensure that women over 45 are visible in our industry. Don't cast her out.
Hello, I'm Richard Herring, and I'm signing up to the Acting Your Age campaign Parity Pledge to ensure that women over 45 are visible and represented in our industry, both as actors, comedians, and as writers as well. It seems really important to me that the whole of society is covered in drama and in comedy, that everyone's experiences are important, and yet you will see fewer and fewer middle-aged and older women represented on screen, in films, on TV, and in comedy clubs as well. And that's mad to me, because as a writer, I've found writing for older actors not only exciting and interesting, but they're more experienced, they know what they're doing, and will bring even more out of your work. So if you're a writer, please write for older women. If you're an executive, please commission stuff by and for women over 45, who are most of your audience, or a big proportion of your audience, and it's just nuts that they're not represented on screen. In drama, in comedy, it seems like a no-brainer to me. Please support this campaign if you agree with me, and remember, don't cast her out.
I'm signing up to the Acting Your Age campaign Party Pledge to ensure women over the age of 45 are visible in our industry. Just like me, don't cast her out.
Hi, my name's David Threlfall. I'm an actor. I've been asked to lend my voice to the Acting Your Age campaign Parity Pledge for women over the age of 45 in our industry. When I started in the business as a young actor, some of the best people I worked with and learnt from were women over the age of 45, legends actually of the business, whether it's in front of camera, behind camera, on stage, off stage. And it's staggering that it's still an issue today. So I'm here to make the invisible visible and ask you to show your support for women over the age of 45 who've got such a lot of experience to offer the industry that we work in a world of diversity. Don't cast her out.
Hi, I'm Nikki Clark. I'm a writer, journalist, and campaigner. And in 2022, I'm launching a new podcast called Acting Your Age, where, alongside some fantastic guests, we'll be discussing why aging is a privilege and certainly nothing to be scared of. Can we talk about Unforgotten, which broke the nation? So I've got to be really careful because you can't spoiler culture is really, really vicious. So I'm not going to say anything except, oh my God. So it's
I mean, it's down to Chris Lang. And I remember when the first series went out, I remember saying after that I think that's the most diverse program I've ever been in. And that was diverse across age, gender, and race. And it was, and, you know, obviously it worked. You know, the storytelling was really good. And so, and that's the other thing, you know, people think that, you know, it's that whole notion of it's not for me. And I think that it's one of the things that I feel about diversity, again, across age and across gender and across culture as well, especially in Britain, is that, you know, until you feel that they are, you know, your own stories, they will always be the other. And so you know, because I love creativity, I don't really approach a film or a TV program if it's about women or if it's about somebody older or it's a different culture or a different part of Britain, thinking it's not mine. You know, because, you know, the bit that will be mine will be my emotional connection to the story and the characters. And so I don't start with that. And so that's the thing, I think, that, you know, thinking it's the otherness, you know, it's a chick flick, it's a woman's story, it's about old people, it's about kids, it's about teenagers. And, you know, to start with, well, I'm not one of those things, so it's not for me, is an incredibly reductive place to start.
Without remotely sort of wanting to sound ungrateful, there is a way in which people say, gosh, your career's going so well, you know, in your old age, you know, or they don't use that term, but I know that's what I feel. You know, you're getting all these, you know, you're suddenly having this Indian summer and isn't it so great? And you go, well, yes, of course it's marvelous that I'm still working, but there's still sort of cameo-ish parts, you know, that don't use anything like the whole of me, you know, so there's still a huge load of me that has to go into something else, you know, and I'm the lucky one.
I think across the industry, there are so many conversations happening now that are important conversations about women's representation. And I think for me, my campaigning on this is just an extension of that conversation. It's not complaining and it's not blaming. It's just saying, as you have so beautifully, you know, that this is, it needs to be something that people understand.
We should be breaking out and listening to one another and learning about one another. And if drama has a role, it should be that. It should be to turn the camera onto people that you don't normally find out about in your everyday life, and to get intimate and close up with them and see what they're thinking. And, you know, it's such a wonderful tool for, you know, breaking down barriers and opening our minds. And I get frustrated that it isn't used that way often enough.
we know, because also, Nikki, we're experiencing it.
Yes.
That's the point. You know, it's, you know, when you see people saying, yeah, but is it as bad as it is? Yes, it is. Because you know why? Because I'm living it. I know it is. I know it. Take it from me, take it from personal experience, that when you reach a certain point as a woman in your life, you fall off and you become invisible.
Yeah.
And you're deemed you're not bankable, or you're not interesting, or you're not in it, and it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That
For no reason other than a calendar.
That's my point, though. It's literally just a number.
Yes.
It's literally just among people that is considered not bankable or not interesting or not noteworthy. And it's so frustrating. So frustrating. But
the thing I always say to any critics, because, you know, you get them, oh, stop bloody women moaning about bloody, and I keep coming back to the same thing. You know, as usually there are a lot of critical men, although a huge number of men are supporting this campaign, who will, and I keep saying the same thing, and to women who say there's not a problem because Judi Dench, and it's like, Judi...
I know.
Thank you.
And also another thing is that, you know, that at some point, young women who aren't interested in it or think it doesn't affect them are going to experience it eventually, because they're going to get older. There's not even any like tangible answers with regards to why it pisses people off or why it offends people or why, you know, older women are so offensive. Do you know what I mean? You're either, like I was saying this the other day, you're either a cougar, so predatory, or you're a harridan, you're a moaner, or you're, you know, all these things. There is not really a positive word for older women.
Yeah.
You get like silver fox, and you get, you know, all these sort of things for the men, but women, it's always negative connotations as you reach a certain age. There is no explanation as to why, because you said it, well, you know, it's just, that's how it is. Yeah, well, you change that, don't you? You change how it is. It's not working.
So we launched Landline Pictures in 2020, a company called MRC Film, which has been around for about 16 years. It's a very successful independent studio. They've made dozens of films, including Knives Out and Baby Driver and Ted. They're extremely prolific. They were looking around in 2019 for ways to expand their business. And they're an independent financier, meaning that they make their films, but they don't distribute their films. So they went around to all the major studios and streamers and sort of did an informal survey of what kind of content everybody needed that they weren't developing themselves or making. And it fell into sort of three distinct buckets. Romance, like Nick Sparks kind of stories, comedy, lower budget comedy, and every one of them said that they wanted more content for an older audience. And that kind of sparked their idea that maybe we're missing an opportunity in the marketplace to really own the idea of developing and financing films for an older audience. And they had reached out to me. I have produced and made, when I was a studio executive, several movies for this audience. It's a space that I organically connect with and love. And so we started the business in 2020, in February of 2020. And here we are 2.5 years later with our first film launched on Paramount Plus. There's a whole life experience after your 50s that Hollywood has woefully neglected.
And we see an awful lot of coming of age dramas, but what I want to start seeing more of is coming of middle age dramas.
I love that you just said that, because there's a movie that we'll be announcing soon that we just, our second film that we just sold to a major studio. And I pitch it as a coming of middle age story.
Brilliant.
The bitter, sniping, aged hag, the predictable, endless, constant nag, the killjoy crone, the humorless fool. That's the picture. That's the role.
The mother role, the boring wife, always wrecking someone's life. complaining on as bigots too, while Bond still shags at 52.
Wait, she can't lead. That won't sell. But token boss, she'll do that well. Or caring friend. She knows the score. That's quite enough. She can't have more.
The flaky friend. The sister part. A career stopped before it starts. The sexy minx just doesn't fly for women as the time goes by.
We're working hard. We're in our prime. That dated view is yours, not mine. I have to tell you, Mammy's dead. No grey hair here, just in their head.
This narrow view is not our choice. Talent has a woman's voice. The adjunct roles are not enough. They're turning granite into fluff.
And tabloids tell a lurid tale of two young partners, if they're male, whilst older men just walk on by. Well, good for him, the lucky guy.
We didn't write the rules, it's true. But would this be enough for you? Why is it still an industry fact that middle-aged means she can't act?
We want to lead. That isn't wrong. We can't keep singing the same song. Where's our truth, our on-screen life? We're not trouble, so why the strife?
We're speaking now. We're calling time. Your parity is also mine. A sell-by date on talent? No. That's sexist crap. It has to go.
A woman's age is not a fail, so show her life in every tale, and when you do so, let her lead. It's time for truth in word and deed.
Some of the biggest stars of stage and screen have issued a call to arms against what they term ageism against women in the industry, which they say is outdated, harmful and neglects millions of people in the audience who appreciate seeing women over 45 telling the stories of our lives. The signatories include Keely Hawes, Harriet Walter, Juliet Stevenson, Mira Sal, Liam Neeson and David Tennant, among many others. In their open letter, they demand parity between male and female leads on screen when it comes to both age and gender. Let's talk now to Nikki Clark, disability campaigner who founded the Acting Your Age campaign, and Juliet Stevenson, BAFTA-nominated stage and screen actor. Welcome to you both. Lovely to have you with us this afternoon. Let me ask you, Nikki, you launched this campaign some years ago. Why do you think this letter now is timely?
I think because, and as you say, yes, 4 years ago I launched this campaign. I think it's just struck a chord. I think it's been a problem in the industry for as long as there's been an industry, really. There's been this idea of a sort of perceived female sexual currency, and that is for youth. And whilst men on screen have a whole life, women still have a shelf life. And I think everybody in the industry, and that's men, women, younger people, older women, older men, are just tired of it. And I think they recognise that if we're going to establish, as we have, 50-50 gender parity on screen, on stage, in advertising, in news, presenting, and across the board, that also has to apply, to women over the age of 45, because that is absolutely, and has been identified not just in my data research, but with Ofcom, that at 45, up to that age, everything is equal between men and women. But over the age of 45, that's when it exponentially falls away. And then after 50, it's just virtually non-existent, women of my age.
Juliet Stevenson, what's your experience? Because you were a star in your younger years as an actor. You've continued to work, but have you found the variety of roles offered to you has noticeably declined once you were in your 40s?
Oh yeah, I mean, hugely. And I would say, first of all, I'm not campaigning on behalf of myself. I'm
Sure.
campaigning really on Nikki's campaign. I'm joined Nikki's campaign on behalf of
other actors, actresses, and many of whom I know who are really wonderful, talented, amazing performers who work fine in their 20s and 30s and then literally meet this sort of fall over the cliff edge. It's like roadkill. I mean, honestly, this, if the acting industry is a highway, then, you chug along in your 20s and 30s, and then women's careers just stop or die, and many women just can't keep working, or if they are, they're playing tiny marginal roles. So it's without question true that I did notice that. A lot of what I play now is in support of the male protagonist, and I am one of the lucky ones, and I absolutely know that. I work a lot, and I'm really fortunate as the industry goes, and I recognize that. But I'm talking about other actresses, but I'm also talking about audiences. Really, this is really important to me, that women over 40 constitute a very large percentage of those who watch telly and stream movies and go to the cinema. They are not seeing their narratives told, and they're often seeing women of their age group and experience represented in cliched and stereotypical ways. The kind of grumpy granny, or the gorgeous, the reliable PA, or the bad mother, or the wonderful wife at home. They're wearing a lot of aprons, and they're carrying a lot of trays, and they're sitting behind a lot of desks, but they're very rarely holding the narrative and shaping that narrative.
Yeah, I was thinking, there's some actors I was thinking of. I was just doing a list in the office, just trying to jot it down. And I thought some of them are on this signatories. Annette Badland, Barbara Flynn, Adjoa Ander, Josette Simon are actors I can think of when I was growing up, who maybe I don't see so much of, but I know are still in the industry. Is there sort of a period where actors of your generation find yourself struggling to get work, and then actors, when they're much older, suddenly find interesting roles are offered again? I remember Anne Reid saying this. She went for years where she couldn't really get anything. She'd break away to have kids, found it really hard to get back into the industry, to be taken seriously and given roles again. Suddenly she has a renaissance, but there's a sort of wasted year. Then presumably some women actors just say, look, I can't get back in, they give up.
Well, the fact that you're naming Anne Reid, it's because that was very rare. She did have this wonderful opportunity that came back, I think, in that, I can't remember what it was called, that lovely thing with Derek Jacobi. And she did a film with Roger Michell. And so suddenly at probably in her 70s, if you can make it through your 40s, your 50s and your 60s, if you can get to 70, you might end up being a lovely, dowager and getting all those sort of adorable old women roles. But very few women get there, and they just don't survive. They can't, because they can't keep working. They've got to do something else.
Right, I'll ask you both, if I may, what the challenge is you're putting down to casting directors, to writers, to TV producers. Briefly, if you both could. Juliet first, and then Nikki.
Just rethink, stop. It's a waste. Right, it's a massive waste. There's a huge pool of amazing human creativity, intelligence, experience, wisdom, self-knowledge, ideas, courage, creative bravery. You are wasting it. That's not being used to create incredible stories. Just don't shoot yourselves in the foot by excluding women over the age of 40 just because their skin isn't perfectly taut or tight. Let's move with the times. In other industries, it's moved on. This is so, as you said in your introduction, it's just so old-fashioned to be stuck in these old prejudices.
Nikki Clark, what challenge would you put down based on the research you've done and what you know?
I think the problem is the stigmatising that arises from that, and that huge influencer that television is, and film, and throughout the industry, even news. We have to remember that the impact that has, and the shock waves that come out from that. And also, and I made this point this morning on the Today programme, Juliet Stevenson is Jodie Comer plus time. And this will happen to Jodie Comer and her generation of incredibly talented actresses, because this idea that they have a finite usefulness... Nikki Clark,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, forgive me. We've got to go to our next programme. But thank you for your time. Nikki Clark, Juliet Stevenson, thank you both very much. Point well made. And appropriate.
Hi, my name is Sandra Yee Sensen-Diver. I'm an actress, and I'm adding my support to the brilliant campaign, Acting Your Age, 50-50 from 45. This campaign is fighting for equal representation of men and women on screen, no matter what age. As it is now, men get a full life on screen, whereas women get shelved from the age of 45. Let's do something about that. So please add your support, spread the message, because equal representation matters at every age.
I have been taking particular interest in the Acting Your Age campaign, Don't Cast Her Out campaign. I don't know how many of you know about this, but it's very, very relevant. And the more I read about it, the more incensed I become, really, because there's real truth in the fact that over the age of 45, if you're a female, the parts become less and less and smaller. And you kind of go, hang on a minute, I've lived longer and longer, so I've got more and more to say, and I'm better and better. So why are my parts smaller and smaller and less? It doesn't really make sense. And especially when, you know, your male peers that you've gone through the business with continue to work tirelessly and brilliantly in fantastic roles. And there's an unevenness. We're all out of whack. It's all out of balance, and it's not good. And then I got to thinking also that the kind of people that I know that watch the telly are all my mates. They're all in their 50s, and they're always in the pub saying, "When are you going to make something that's about us? Or when are you going to make something that's about women in their 50s?" Yada yada yada. And I kind of go, yeah, actually, when are we going to make something that represents the biggest demographic of people that actually watch the TV? It seems slightly out of whack, doesn't it? In other areas of the business, you know, we're evening out. In other workplaces, everything is evening out. So why isn't it evening out in the acting world? I wonder, why are we not writing and giving parts to older women? It's very interesting. So I urge you to follow this campaign. And there's some really fabulous older actresses getting involved. Don't cast us out.